Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Konnichiwa. I'm glad you guys are here today. I figured that we'd introduce another friend of ours who's spoken at Davos. Raf, take it away. How you doing?
Thank you, most perfectly. I really like your outfit today, Andreas.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Alexander. So tonight,
Thank you,
it's a
guys.
very particular treat that I was able to bring Alexander along. We met, was synchronistically actually on Facebook through some connections. Actually, this is a Team Rabbit Hole connection, to be very perfectly
Oh,
clear.
interesting.
So Jim has a friend Judith and her friend Sam, and they know Alexander, and we were at Ozora this summer at a festival, and they said you totally got to meet each other, and pretty soon it was clear why. And then it was also pretty clear that I could bring him along to the Alternative Economic Forum in Davos. Everyone is invited to check it out. I think I mentioned it briefly last time.
I put the description video and the link in the 10-hour video. It says what second he starts speaking. So you guys, if you want to see him speak at the Alt World Economic Forum,
There is a direct link just to my 7 minutes.
Great. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we have used. So everyone can go check that out on German, but that's just the intro. And basically here we get into the, as they call it, meat and potatoes, at least the start of it. And yeah, I'll let Alexander take it away. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm really happy to be here. I would like to start with a short introduction, who I am, what I'm doing. My name is Alexander Zielinski. I was born in Poland, Warsaw, a long time ago. I spent most of my life in Switzerland. I really love the mountains here. I think it's a beautiful country. I really like the freedom you have here. I think it's one of the most liberal countries in the world. And I studied sociology and philosophy at the University of Bern. I finished with my master's degrees in the year 2009. It's been a moment. And after that, I had to decide whether to continue my studies and do a PhD or to do something else with my time. And in the end, I decided to do both because not doing PhDs seemed like a waste of my talent, and only doing academic work seemed like a waste of my other talents. So since 20 years, I'm a DJ and event manager.
Nice.
We did a lot of different things because we get bored easily. So if the music is not good enough, we look for better music somewhere else. We started with drum and bass. We still love good drum and bass, especially the old stuff. We is me and my brother in crime, Karol. Then we did Dark Psy High Tech when it was super fresh and exciting and like the next big thing. And when it became the next big thing and got boring and commercial, we dropped it. We started doing something else. And for the last 10 years, we've been promoting what I would call underground techno, if that's even a thing. Some people maybe would think it's commercial, but to me it always was underground compared to tech house, deep house, and all this stuff. So it was all about raving hard, like all night long, lot of bass, loud music, a lot of stuff. And that's what I do in my spare time. And when I'm not listening to music and DJing, I research what some people would call secret world government. The official name is Bilderberg Conferences. I have been lucky that in the beginning of my research, my first archive visit was in 2013. My first public presentation was summer 2014, and shortly afterwards, I was lucky to discover online all conference reports of Bilderberg conferences between 1954 and 1995. I'm very grateful to the person who compiled these reports and put them online, because without these reports, I'm not sure. Yes, thank you very much. Without these reports, I'm not sure how far I would have got with my research. Thanks to these reports, I've been very, very busy the last 8 years. Yes, this is how it looks like. You just get the name and the country. And to be honest, like most of these names, I had no idea who these people are.
Right, they're not Tom Cruise. These are real famous people, secretly famous. You know what I mean?
Secretly
who's
famous.
who?
So secretly that they don't appear in history books, because they pull the strings. They pull these strings as well. So like they prefer to operate behind the scenes, and but there is a lot of like. There is a lot of people also that it's a combination, right? Because if these people try to pull strings, they need to have front people also. They cannot, like, you need somebody has to be, let's say, Secretary of State or Finance Minister or CEO of Shell, people like that. So I see like 2 level of people in Bilderberg, at least 2 level, maybe even 3 level.
Right.
I see the people who operate behind the scenes, whose names are either not so known or known mostly in conspiratorial circles, not necessarily in academic publications. Maybe some historians are familiar with the Wallenbergs are one example which I like to quote, because what is important about Bilderberg to understand how it works is that there is 2 groups of people. One is called the steering committee, and the others are the guests or participants of the conferences. And the steering committee is important because these people make the agenda of the meetings, and they invite the guests, and at the one day before the conference starts, they have their very secret meeting. It's around 30 people, and they discuss how they want to steer the discussion during the conference. And we don't know more about this, which I'm very, very disappointed. In the documents I saw in the archive, it always, every year, it's the same sentence. The steering committee discussed how to steer the proceedings of the conference or the discussion of the conference. There is not one single reference to actual content, but it looks a lot, at least to me, it looks a lot as if these 30 people decide before the conference what they would like to be the outcome of the discussions. Then there is the conference, and they try to influence the discussion in such a way that at the end they get the outcome, the desired outcome, but the participants are not aware of this process, and they believe that they are participating actively in deliberations on very important geopolitical subjects, and that it is actually them coming to these conclusions through the discussions, which makes it easier if you want to stay like behind the scenes and pull the strings behind the scenes. It's much easier than if you go to somebody and tell him, look, I would like you to do this. And then this person will be like, okay, who are you? And why should I do this? But if you make it in such a way that this person is like, like, I think I need to do this because it's the best outcome for everyone involved, then you will get much better results, I believe. I think this is I haven't found any documents, but I strongly suspect that the design of the conference is the result of research from Tavistock Institute. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this one. Yes.
We are, but it's always interesting to hear someone elaborate from their perspective. And as an academic, what would you say about Tavistock?
Tavistock, they did a lot of research into groupthink, like how to influence, how to insert certain ideas into a group of people, like not one person but a group of people. And I'm almost sure, and I really hope one day to have some documents that will prove this. I'm almost sure that how the conference is organized and structured is the result of Tavistock Institute research into groupthink.
Have you studied Prince Bernhard and his connections to Bilderberg much?
Yes. Prince Bernhard, the old double agent. Like
please elaborate for us American fools who know nothing about the royal Bilderberg circles,
And I'm pretty sure most Europeans don't have any clue either, to be honest with you.
That's comforting. But yeah, so I mean, all I could say is that he made that movie Nausicaa, right? Nausicaa anime. Have you guys seen that one? It's amazing.
Really? He made that? What?
Well, not by hand. Like Walt Disney made, Disney movies kind of like people made this in Japan, but the money behind it was Prince Bernhard and the World Wildlife Foundation, his other pet project, right? So
1001 Club is even more interesting, huh?
Yeah, Bernhard World Wildlife Foundation, is that right? With the panda bear, right? So he wanted to create Bilderberg, but he also wanted to create the World Wildlife Foundation. And his thought was that if we created anime for children at all around the world that could influence groups on their thoughts about animals, which, by the way, this is where Pokemon comes from. Let's not forget, like, this is how Tavistock this is, that he could make a movie where 1,000 years after the fall of industry, man surrenders to the inevitability of nature and ecosystems, right? I think, and it's interesting when you talk about Bilderberg, because where was it? I was just looking at this.
Looking at the pie chart that you just showed. Maybe just show it again.
I will, but really quickly, I want to say this is like in the 54 report, like it's like Soviet communism is not a force of liberation, progress, and social justice, but a movement of reaction, retrogression, which is interesting because this is after Stalin died, right when Sovietism was about to possibly become a lot more optimistic. So they really go around trying to say, this fact must be constantly emphasized, right? That's the way it's worded there. And then, yes, this is the 2022 Bilderberg breakdown. Here you look at the steering committee, which is in blue, but you can also look at the former steering committee, which is in red. So you can see, there's something changing there.
I just want to point out here that it's quite obvious if you have like an in-group of 25% that really know what's going on, you have the other 25 that have already been there, so they know the drill. And then you have probably 50% of somewhat disorganized, maybe anxious first-timers, maybe excited that they finally get to accede to that level of controller faction meeting. And, with some group pressure, I see pretty easily how it could be steered, just as the name says.
What's that movie? Mean Girls, First Day of School? This is Bilderberg 2022, literally. It's just like, hey, Fetch is in now. Like, that's how they're getting him.
I think it's interesting what you just said, Raphael, about these first-timers. There's most of the participants in the conference participate in only one conference, and there is another group of people who participate in 2 conferences. And I think, from the top of my head, it's around 2/3 of all participants ever have not participated in more than 1 or 2 conferences.
Wow.
if you have a certain modus operandi that we were discussing so far, it is much easier to repeat it year after year if you don't have so many people who come again and again, because once you come a few times, you see, it's always the same game being played. But if you're there only one time, you don't realize you're being played.
Is this the Bilderberg Austrian delegation?
Yeah, I just wanted to show them you can do it with audio if it's possible. Just it's kind of funny, you know, that's what you get to see from them. But this is from some kind of American or British journalist, actually. So he was the one uploading this, you know, 5,000 views.
Rudowski or who?
I don't know how to share with audio yet. I'll have to learn. I'm sorry. That'll be a coming thing with StreamYard. But I can probably subtitle.
Yeah, it's fine. They're not saying anything too interesting anyways, you know, but it's just, yeah.
The global system was the key topic this year. Yeah. We had a good time. Yeah. Pretty bad serious situation. We have to be extremely careful that people in Europe, of course, don't suffer. Oh, man.
And just to be clear, so he's some kind of super important bank guy who was, I think, even chief of Erste Group or something, Andreas Xirtus.
The Austrian, he does look like he loves banks and little toy trains. Like you might have like a giant...
The other one, so the girl coming with him, she's the leader of the kind of newly founded Liberal Party of Austria, which is like a split off of the, let's say, conservatives. And they are also really good at, let's say... how should I say, going along with the agenda and so on. So it's kind of funny, of course, that she's the one who's there. But I think she's a first timer, and I'm pretty sure that he's been there before.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I mean, so but you saw that just now.
2009.
What did it say again about 2009?
Andreas Xirtus, 2009.
Yeah. So Alexander, you were pointing out that it's not common.
What is interesting in this context is he's member of the Trilateral Commission since 2007 and ongoing. And I think it's important to understand, people like to focus on the Bilderberg conferences because it's so secretive and nobody knows what's going on, etc. And it happens once a year. But I think it's really important for us to understand this is not an isolated group. This is not an isolated event. They are very connected to other conferences. I would like to, if I may, I would like to explain how this works. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
These people, they are busy and lazy. They don't have time for this and that and that, because either they are playboys and they are just enjoying life because they are the ruling families of this planet, or they are very busy in their business world. So when they come together for Bilderberg, they try to create institutions that will do their work for them, and then they can just like check and give the thumbs up for this, thumbs down for this, etc. So as soon as Bilderberg started, they started creating other institutions which would focus on specific subjects. For example, there is the Interdoc network, anti-communism, which one of the main goals of the Interdoc network was, yes, this is a very, very important publication, Western Anti-Communism and the Interdoc network, very important publication. They basically made sure that nobody would ever make it to a position of power in a large multinational corporation that would disagree with capitalist economic system, so-called communists, who would like more power for the people, more power for the workers. They were making sure these people would either lose their jobs or not advanced in their corporations. This is I assume the same thing for political parties, of course, for the especially, of course, the socialist, social democratic parties. That was the first thing they created. Next thing they created is International Institute of Strategic Studies. This still exists today. They are very influential with the so-called Shangri-La dialogues with the Chinese. This is a very important institution. We have nothing about them. There is not one single academic history, as far as I know, not even like articles which would go a bit more in depth what they were up to. I found so far only one membership list from 1970. Haven't got time yet to go in depth who these people are, but IISS definitely still very influential. They have been influential for decades. Few years later, they create the Atlantic Institute of International Affairs, where they discuss like
I'm sorry, can you repeat the name of that? The Institute for International
Atlantic Institute. One sec. Atlantic Institute. It's defunct Atlantic Institute, like this. It doesn't exist anymore. I think it got disabled in the mid-80s. But
did it succeed in all it was trying to do? And
for example, topics like oil crisis, inflation, recycling of petrodollars, also the fight against the global south, against the new international economic order in the 1970s. A lot of this has been discussed in the Atlantic Institute. There was a strong, especially in the mid-70s, there was a very strong overlap between the steering committee of the Bilderberg conferences and the governors of the Atlantic Institute. And the important academics from the Atlantic Institute were invited to the Bilderberg conferences, where they would present the latest research on topics such as multinational corporations, how to make sure that the money keeps flowing from south to north and not the other way around. Very important Atlantic Institute. Again, as with the IISS, we have basically no academic research into this organization.
Wow.
Very hard to find.
And it seems like it ended right as the Soviet Union collapsed. So they
more or
probably
less, yes,
did what they needed to do.
1988. Yeah, they did a good job. They
succeeded at least. Yeah, I don't know. Good
became obsolete. Better not remember. Yeah. And then, of course, thank you, Andreas. The Trilateral Commission, created in 1973.
So what's the deal? Are they racist? Why do they hate Asian people in Bilderberg? Why did they need a?
I'm not sure if they are racist. The official reason is that there are two reasons. I studied in depth the documents, the deliberations of the steering committee in the early 70s. Right. Why they do not agree with David Rockefeller was like, okay, guys, it's like 1972. We need the Japanese on board, like, right. Otherwise we're fucked. Yeah. And everyone else was like, David, look, you're a smart guy, but you don't understand. Look, these people, they are not like us. I don't know if you want to call this racist. I would not use this word, but basically they explained to Rockefeller, look, they are not like us.
They're ideologically different.
They don't understand how we argue. Like they offended so easily. Like we make bomb and they already like think we want to kill them. We just put the fist on the table, and they don't understand our style of arguing. They have a different culture, so it would be better if they do not participate in our discussions.
Interesting.
And there is also very interesting, like, they were afraid that if they invite the Japanese, at some point they would have to explain to them the real goals of the Bilderberg group, and they were pretty sure the Japanese would not agree with these goals, so they preferred not to invite them and keep their keep their intentions secret.
Wow.
This is from the official documents. This is not my imagination.
No,
this
absolutely.
is why the Japanese didn't get invited. Instead, they created the Trilateral Commission, which both in the European and North American group was full of Bilderberg participants, like full. Everyone who mattered in Bilderberg was in Trilateral Commission as well. Nowadays, the overlap is still strong, not as strong as in the 70s, but there is still a lot of overlap. We had Andreas Xirtus. He still is member of the Trilateral Commission. He's also a member of the European Council of Foreign Relations. That's a newer organization created by this network.
Members,
in,
was it member
2008.
Member of European Council of Foreign Relation?
The
Still
European.
exists?
Yeah, there is both. There is the Council on Foreign Relations, which was created in 1921 and still exists, and they are very successful in influencing American foreign policy.
European Council on Foreign
Relations.
Relations.
There is the European Council on Foreign Relations, which
it's always another fish.
Which obviously they sympathize with the American one, otherwise they wouldn't use the same name. This one was created. Joschka Fischer, the German former foreign minister, was
former Green Party, who then sanctioned wars.
And he just one second. Joschka Fischer, foreign minister 1998 till 2005. He was responsible for the first. Let's never forget the so-called
name. I'll find it. Is this guy?
So-called revolutionary, so-called green Joschka Fischer was responsible for the first German military intervention outside of Germany since World War II. Thank you very much, you motherfucker.
Faces like this terrify me. I'll be honest. It's just a vibe, you know.
And he did such a good job as foreign minister that he got, for example, honorary doctorate Tel Aviv University in 2006. And in 2007, he was the founding co-chairman of the European Council on Foreign Relations.
Look how happy he is there with Putin. He's just, hi. Yeah. Man, so what was the next? Should I open up?
Together with that's the information I was looking for. Together with former president of Finland and regular Bilderberg participant Martti Ahtisaari, not a well-known guy, but very influential behind the scenes. He was doing a lot of special envoy, for example, in Kosovo. He was doing a lot of this guy. He was doing a lot of stuff for the United Nations.
Where's that picture of him with his hand in his pocket? They've got like a very Masonic. Here, is this one? Hold on. Where is that picture of him? There's a picture of him where he's got his hand reaching into his pocket, like very Masonically. But
so we had the IISS, the Atlantic Institute, Trilateral Commission. Then, of course, the Group of 30. Only for central bankers and economists that was created in 1978. Then, of course, organization where fortunately we have academic research into it, the European Roundtable of Industrialists, created in 1983, which was very influential in creating the Euro and the Maastricht Treaty.
What a cool website, ert.eu.
Very good. Yeah, it's exactly this. And this is one of the few where we can rely on serious academic research, which shows that they were indeed influential. And also there is a great book by Bastian van Apeldoorn on this topic. And he shows how there were internal power struggles between globalists and Europeanists, like people who, there was a fraction of the industrialists who believed that Europe should be a power on its own, and there was another fraction which prevailed, which believes that Europe can only be strong together with the United States, and together they should
Atlantis. Yeah.
Yes, Atlanticism, exactly. So and all these organizations, most of them still exist, and most of them still have, like the European Roundtable of Industrialists, they have a lot of big companies. Yes, Volvo.
I mean, the irony that Umberto Agnelli from Fiat was in charge and part of the roundtable during the time when Fiat had their car design stolen by the Soviet Union to make the Lada, because the Lada could have been a Volvo, or it could have been a Ford, or it could have been a Volkswagen or a Porsche, but no, a Fiat. I mean, that's definitely some insider planning.
They had good connections, the Agnellis and the Soviets.
Yeah.
I remember that one of the first visits of Agnelli to Moscow, and the Russians were like, nice to meet you. Finally, we're talking with real power, like not these prime ministers who come and go as the seasons change, but the permanent Western establishment. They were very, like, the Russians were very aware of who was really in charge in
Right.
Western Europe, North America during the Cold War.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to have a 4-year government transitional system in a land that's had monarchies and benevolent dictatorships and despots. It makes more sense to have 20 to 100-year rule everywhere. It's a gradual transition, at least, you know.
That's your opinion, and I think these people wouldn't disagree. Yeah, I think that's why they have structure. We can maybe it's a good opportunity to come back to the structure of Bilderberg with the steering committee. I mentioned before the Wallenberg dynasty. It is very interesting. Like, there have been around 5 to 10 Swedish members of the steering committee, and all of them have either been members of the Wallenberg dynasty or key employees of this dynasty. So there is no other entrance. Like, you can't become a Swedish member of the steering committee unless you are a Wallenberg or one of the key employees. I think this is very interesting, and I think this deserves further research. This will be one of the chapters in my PhD thesis, because I have, like, there is so much material, and with my supervisor we agreed that I will focus on the topic of the transnational capitalist class, because this is something where there is a lot of sociological literature that I can easily relate to my research, and like this show that what I'm doing is relevant from a sociological perspective, that it's not just conspiracies and rumors and stuff like that.
Right.
Using the concept of the transnational capitalist class, we can show how the Bilderberg conferences are related to the evolution of the transnational capitalist class. I have very interesting research questions that I hope one day other PhD students will work on. For example, there are a lot of multinational corporations. At some point, one of their owners or chairman or presidents was invited for the first time to a Bilderberg conference. And I would like to correlate this list of which year were they invited for the first time with interlocking directors between the core Bilderberg companies and these companies. So, but there it's I can't do it right now because it needs a lot of archival research. But so far, the information I already have shows that there is a strong overlap between being part of the Bilderberg network and interlocking directorates between, for example, Unilever, Philips, Fiat, Royal Dutch Shell, all the Wallenberg companies like AstraZeneca, Volvo, Electrolux, SAP, etc. I believe we should have enough data to show that it's really a network where the companies are linked with each other through interlocking directorates. I think this is very important, like empirical data for to substantiate the thesis of the existence of a transnational capitalist class. Yes, this is very important.
The Shangri-La dialogue.
Shangri-La dialogue. Yes, and the Wallenbergs are one of the dynasties which is obviously very involved in all of this. Another one are the Rockefellers. It's hard to say if this is still true because they don't appear since a while. The Rockefellers don't appear on any official list of participants. So we would need to study more in depth if they just don't appear on these lists or if they are not longer part of this network.
This is interesting, right? Because the Trilateral Commission would suggest it's plausible that they have built other networks, and the fact that the Bilderberg network has a website now, I mean, it's no longer the secret meeting, not the way it used to be, right?
Yes.
So if they have a secret meeting, then
they had to adjust. They had to adjust to the new. It's also like there is another. I forgot about two more just to make it complete. Of course, the World Economic Forum in Davos wouldn't exist without Bilderberg. Like from the beginning, it was Henry Kissinger. This is I'm quoting from the official history of the World Economic Forum. In the late 1960s, Klaus Schwab got invited by Henry Kissinger, and Kissinger was like, look, you're a smart guy, you're an ambitious guy. We have an idea that we would like you to develop further and cooperate with us. We would like the network was growing. It was 15 years after the first Bilderberg conferences. The network was growing. It was not longer possible to invite everyone to the Bilderberg conference. So they had idea, let's make a bigger conference where we can invite everyone. And like this, nobody will feel excluded or not part of the deliberations, etc. So they created the European Management Symposium in Davos, which I think in the mid-80s changed the name to World Economic Forum. And in 1995, Klaus Schwab was for the first time officially invited to Bilderberg. He participated 3 years in a row. And this is when Peter Sutherland became an important figure in the World Economic Forum. And this is when Davos became really big, like really influential. And this is all and also already in the early 90s, they started this Young Global Leader program. And it's impressive how many of these young global leaders rose to top positions of power in countries like France, Great Britain, Germany. So this is something that Bilderberg has been doing for a long time, but not so officially. Like in Bilderberg, nobody was called Bilderberg promising leader. No,
they're like it's like Bilderberg.
You knew or you didn't know. With times are changing, and nowadays they are more open about what they are doing. And they are not afraid to tell everyone that
I believe
they like to to invite young, promising politicians and ask them if they would like to cooperate. Let's call it like this. Huh?
If I'm not completely mistaken, I believe there's even a statement by what's his face, Schwab himself, who actually says, well, you know, some decades ago, managing these crises was more difficult, but now we basically penetrated all the major cabinets of all the countries. So, yeah.
Including Putin.
For those of you who didn't notice, Dan Crenshaw is on that list. So, I mean, Dan Crenshaw is pretty famous in the United States for trying to play a rhino Republican in name only character. And he's like, he was on Saturday Night Live and things like that. So there's been a number of people who've pointed him out as being perhaps an alleged charlatan or at least a member of the exact thing he's supposed to be fighting against. And here's another example. Just love that.
Very good, yes. So the World Economic Forum is another Bilderberg offshoot. We have to be aware of this. This is a huge network of people. Still only a few thousand, I would say, but they are everywhere. Huh? They are all the major corporations, all the major governments.
And religions is starting to look like, yeah.
Religion, of course.
Sadhguru, World Economic Forum. Save the soil. For whom? I'm asking.
Yes.
Dude, Sadhguru is both like an interesting character, and the word itself is such a perfect meme because, like, incels need sad gurus. You know what I mean? It's exactly right. A depressed, sad guru. That's what he is. I don't know. Just me?
Yes, but let's be honest. Religion, like organized religion, has been corrupt for a long time. This is not a new phenomenon. There are a lot of people who doubt the
right. It's not even about religion. It's about
even people like Dalai Lama, right?
It's well, he's on the CIA payroll,
etc.
Dalai Lama. CIA
I was just pointing out Sadhguru because it's part of the New Age movement, and some people then believe, you know, they're independent of it. You know,
this is really funny. So all my life, I've read that the CIA payroll was to Dalai Lama, and I've read it on the Freedom of Information Act. But the Chicago Tribune is trying to compensate. Dalai Lama was not on CIA payroll, but his people were. Well, this is an old document, by the way. Dalai Lama was on CIA payroll as a more recent 2013, I think 2012. They had a FISA, Freedom of Information papers that pointed out that Dalai Lama was on CIA payroll. Point is, the intelligentsia of anything, of celebrity Hollywood, of religious organizations, of, you know, rich bankers, anybody who's in the intelligentsia, you're going to invite some of those people, and of course pick the young ones that are going to be up and comers, because it's a casting party for the movie that is politics. It's starting to look like, to an extent.
Indeed, it is. I can add just one small example. I was in the archive of Paul Jols from Nestle, and not only Nestle, but also one of the key Swiss diplomats during the Cold War.
How do I spell it? Paul what?
Paul Jols. One second. Paul Jols, like this. And it is very interesting because you have this in conspiracy circles, you have these rumors that these people are just puppets, and then somebody else is writing the scripts, telling them what to do, etc. But there is little documentary evidence of this claim. And I was in his in the archive where his papers are kept. And at one point in the mid-80s, he got invited to the World Economic Forum in Davos. And he was supposed to lead a discussion on a certain complex topic like agriculture and development, something in this direction.
No American Wikipedia page, but on the Deutsch Wikipedia page, right here, played a key role negotiating the 1972 bilateral free trade agreement
between Switzerland and the European Economic Union. That agreement was signed 3 months after the Bilderberg conference.
Read between the lines, right?
What a coincidence! What a coincidence!
Interesting. Oh, and he also played a deputy director general of the International Atomic Energy Agency in Wien, which is totally what Nestle should be doing, I think.
And he got invited, and he was like, what the fuck, huh? Like, the conference is in 1 month or something, or 6 weeks, whatever. The conference is very soon. You are expecting me, I'm a retired manager, I'm busy and enjoying life, and you are really expecting me to prepare now, like I need weeks to prepare seriously for leading such a discussion. And they were like, Paul, don't worry. You just have to be there, and you don't have to prepare anything. We will prepare everything for you. We just want you to be there and talk like this. So basically, these documents show that it is not a rumor. Huh? These people sometimes they just say what somebody wrote for them, just to make it look more legitimate. Huh?
Have you heard of Bruce Valanche? Do you know who Bruce Valanche is? In America, when you ever see like Eurovision or Oscar night kind of thing, Oscar night, okay? In America, we have our vision of Eurovision is this like, you know, people talking and they all laugh. We have the Academy Award show as well. All of these shows have these jokes and speeches and everything. Everyone's like joking around. Well, they're not written by the actors, of course. They're written by Bruce Valanche. Bruce Valanche is this weird, freakish guy who makes jokes about pedophile cats and, you know, what do you call it? Where you have sex with dead animals and things like that. Like all the time. He's like the dirtiest, most disgusting guy. But he writes all of the politically correct speeches for 30 people. And he'll write the lines for one person talking to another person. And yeah, I mean, this guy's written so many politically charged speeches for people, and they say, hey, why are you guys saying this? It's like, well, it's because they're reading a speech written by this person, right? And his connection to the World Economic Forum was weirdly tied as well, because Hollywood, you know, of course.
Interesting. Yeah, haven't heard about him before.
But similarly, you've got speeches they're writing, yeah?
One more, because this one's really important, and this one is still not on the radar of a lot of people. What is nowadays called the Munich Security Conference, Münchner Sicherheitskonferenz. And this used to, during the Cold War, this used to be called Wehrkundetagung, the conference of the German army. Nowadays they have a bit
of the German army,
less in your face name, but the first Wehrkundetagung took part a few days after John F. Kennedy got assassinated.
Yeah, it's looking
and
like that,
obviously the topic of Kennedy and the future of American foreign policy was a very hot topic during this conference. So this is where it all started. It was very small in the beginning. It was just like 40 people, 50 people, way smaller than Bilderberg. From the beginning, Helmut Schmidt was there. Henry Kissinger was there. This was 10 years before Schmidt got into any positions of power. He was already in the inner circles of Atlantic geopolitics. And these people do not have an archive. Bilderberg has an archive. It's closed for 50 years, of course, but they have an archive. The Wehrkundetagung, they do not have an archive, but nowadays they have a website because Wolfgang Ischinger, the latest chairman, since 2008, I think 2008 till 21, 22. Yeah, this guy, he's like, look, times are changing. If we have zero publicity, then everyone will be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? If we have some publicity, then we can at least like legitimize what we're doing to a certain degree and calm a bit they don't want to be Bilderberg too, right? They want to be like, look, we're not hiding anything. Here is the list of participants, And
It's funny. It's exactly what the Yakuza went corporate, you know, like now if you move into a neighborhood with the Yakuza, and they'll bring you like a fruit basket to welcome to our neighborhood, and they all wear suits. You know, it's the same. I mean, now it's like, yeah, we've got data, but it's boring. Nobody cares. You know, it's a bunch of old men, right? Go back to sleep.
And what is interesting about Munich is that everyone is there.
Right.
You have the
oh my god,
the famous Putin speech from 2007.
Do you have any opinions? Okay, go ahead. Keep going. What was which speech in 2007?
I sent you the link in the chat.
Okay, cool.
In Munich, everyone is invited, but as with Bilderberg, officially, they are there in private capacity. I will quote, just give me 1 second. I will quote from the official list of participants. From the official list of participants, all participants.
And they all dress like Slavic butlers with the cravat tie, like Janissaries.
And I would still say his looks definitely changed a lot.
Oh yeah,
for sure. But
that's definitely the Dread Pirate Roberts
for my file. Raphael, let me know what you think about Putin and how he has changed in the last 20 years.
Well, all I can say is that
I'm curious to hear.
Yes, well, Xirtus, just maybe pull up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's look.
Everyone can just judge for themselves. And I don't even know who told me this story. I think even Xirtus, it was you with his wife. Did you tell the story? Did you tell the story? So that supposedly, I mean, I couldn't really verify it properly, and there's only some, half-baked articles about this. But it's supposedly even his wife at some point said something along the lines of, "Oh, they changed him," or something like this, and then they divorced or whatever. All I just want to point out, everyone can look at his face and just consider for themselves if that's like a normal aging, or if it seems more likely there was some kind of a adjustment, replacement, or at the very least very, very heavy facelifting,
Right. I mean, so let's go full Russian montage editing, and I'm just going to show this picture next to the Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride, next to Face Off with John Travolta switching faces with Nick Cage. And the wife in that one definitely lies. Of course, she notices the difference, because there's no way you'd confuse their butts, right? If you're making love with your husband and all of a sudden it's John Travolta's butt, that's going to stick out if you're used to Nicolas Cage. But I think that's what happened to Putin with that.
And just as we're on the topic of Russia, I'm bringing up one other link, which is maybe not exactly related, and I don't want to detract from our discussion, but it's another very strange group I found that I have no idea what to do with, and it's called the Internal Predictor of the USSR. Maybe Xirtus, you ever heard about them?
No, let's see. Internal Predictor.
I sent the link in chat of the USSR, yeah. So this is something else. No, it's in the chat. And this is apparently a group that's writing some even metaphysical papers or something. And I was just really astounded by the name. Like, what kind of name is this? Internal Predictor of the USSR, We don't even have to go deeper into it. I just wanted to bring it up. Maybe someone in chat or someone
you could see that
knows more about
it's
this.
interesting because after Stalin died, there was such an opening in the Soviet Union for so much to happen. Specifically, Stalin had gotten rid of all of these infrastructural things. I mean, he killed a lot of people. Agreed. But he also got rid of a lot of people that were technically associated with other powers in the West. And so there was a huge potential for scientists to invent an entire new generation. The Stalinist university educated people that were working on copyleft stuff. They're going to produce more and more things that the Soviet Union would sell as a state. And you've got an entire generation of people that come out of that, like in several generations. Think about Tetris, right? Tetris exists because of the Soviet ideology for building your own, and eventually by the 60s that all ends because IBM comes out with the 1401, and it was a system that was so good you could connect other computers to it, you could run your old software on it, and that freaked out several Soviet generals because they didn't have enough working on the Soviet computer at the time, the Stella. So they ended up making them copy American stuff, and it was the death of the Soviet computer industry. And this all simultaneously happens with the Club of Rome building their computer system. So it meant that from then on out, the Soviets would be copying us, wouldn't be able to be working on their own things, and would be trapped in our paradigm. And it all happens right around that point. And that was, in a lot of ways, the death of the Soviet Union. It wasn't the 50s. It wasn't the 60s. It was 1971, right?
Okay. So I found the quote. I would like to quote directly because I'm a serious researcher. I don't like to tell things as I remember them. So we were talking about the Munich Security Conference, which is still taking place every year. And on the current, from this year, list of confirmed participants, this is directly on their website. All MSC events are private events. Participants are listed, are private events. This means they got invited by the chairman in a way like his friends a bit, like these are my friends and I invite them and we talk. But this doesn't make any sense when you look at who is invited. They invite foreign ministers, defense ministers, sheikhs, even which is very interesting. I put you in the chat the name. 2022, the conference took place February 18 to February 20, 2022. And on the list of confirmed participants, we have Oleg Deripaska. Oleg Deripaska is now on the list of sanctioned Russians. He is a Munich Security Conference regular participant. He was invited many times. And a few days after the Munich Security Conference, the war in Ukraine started, which reminds me a little bit, but not quite the same story. 2 years ago, in February 2020, a few weeks after the Munich Security Conference, the WHO declared a global pandemic due to some COVID infections. And what is interesting, I talked about this in Davos.
Real quickly, I got to address Remix Phoenix, also heavily influenced by the fascist nationalist Dugin. Read a book. No, he's not a fascist. I mean, he's very anti-fascist, and I think that's an important point that we need to stop mixing up.
Yeah, I just want to say, everybody, and true recommendation, just look on Xirtus' channel, the interview that he did with Alexander Dugin, and, you know, get yourself
not saying
a
like we shouldn't, not saying we don't love Ukrainians or anything like that, you know, love to all Ukraine, but at the same time, pretending that the other guys are the only bad guys and that we are always good is not moving us forward. Right? But okay, sorry, Alexander, continue.
No worries, no worries. I agree. No point in demonizing one side if the other is just as bad.
Right.
And so 2 years ago, there was the Munich Security Conference 2020. As usual, a lot of foreign ministers, prime ministers, presidents, defense ministers, etc. A very strong pharmaceutical representation from most of the major multinational corporations in this field, like Bayer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, etc. And not a single, I repeat, not one health minister. We are at the eve of a global pandemic. These people
are an ideological pandemic.
These people are discussing the pandemic, and we have only foreign ministers, defense ministers, and representatives of pharmaceutical companies. I think this is very strange. And of course, the Secretary General of the WHO. He was there also. And a few weeks later, they declare a pandemic. Gavi Alliance was also represented. So I think if people want to seriously understand what happened in the last 3 years on our planet, they need to take into account this conference and its participants.
Right.
Sorry guys, low battery. So, and again, this is very connected to Bilderberg, and I would like to come to what I actually like, my favorite topic.
Ooh.
What I'm researching right now. First, I need to say how I worked for the last few years. I started with this, with the list of participants. I created a Word document where I listed all Bilderberg participants from the last 60 years. And then I started collecting biographical information. I wanted to know who these people were. I wanted to know what they were doing before they were invited to Bilderberg, and I wanted to know what they were doing after they got invited to Bilderberg, because I think that's how you work if you're a historical sociologist. You need the facts, you need the people, the places, the institutions. And I've discovered a lot of very interesting things, which I will be writing in my books, hopefully, inshallah. And what was for me interesting was that I kept bumping into same or very similar names again and again, sometimes obviously related to each other, like father and son. This personally I find intriguing. As I mentioned before, the example of the Wallenberg dynasty. Today, the Wallenberg dynasty is represented mainly by two guys, two bankers, managers, what you want to call them. One is Jacob, and the other one is Marcus.
Hey, Wallenberg, you're saying?
Yes, this guy, Jacob Wallenberg. They are both involved in Bilderberg. When Swedish participants first started participating in these conferences, the Swedish representative in the steering committee was their grandfather, also Marcus Wallenberg. I don't have time now to talk about what the Wallenbergs were doing during World War II, but they were doing, they were hiding German money.
Long story short.
Hey, so historical facts, huh? Hard to argue with facts. These people were laundering German money.
Right.
So I guess this process continued after World War II.
Absolutely.
Key player here is, of course, Zygmunt Warburg. I can highly recommend the excellent biography by Niall Ferguson called High Financier.
Is it Zygmunt Wallenberg, same or different?
No, here, Zygmunt Warburg. There you go. Niall Ferguson. Niall Ferguson is a Rothschild historian, Warburg historian, and regular Bilderberg participant. So what is interesting about Zygmunt Warburg in the context of the Bilderberg conferences is that two of his key employees have been members of the steering committee for ages. One is Eric Roll, the former British diplomat, and the other one is Anthony Griffin, former Canadian diplomat. They both started working for Warburg. And in the context of the Bilderberg conference, what is
Eric Roll, Baron Roll? He's Baron of Ipsden. All right, not bad.
What is interesting about Anthony Griffin is that he got hired by Zygmunt Warburg as explicitly as a diplomat, not as a banker. Zygmunt Warburg needed somebody, because obviously what I infer from this is that Zygmunt Warburg was not a very diplomatic guy. It was hard for him to be polite when he wouldn't agree with someone. Maybe he would start screaming around and throwing things around, and that's not a nice thing to do when you're in diplomatic negotiations with someone. So he hired people who were professional diplomats who would know how to behave but get the message across. And Eric Roll, this is now let me quote. I quote from memory, but my memory is quite accurate. Like Eric Roll, in the biography of Zygmunt Warburg, they say that Eric Roll basically would basically repeat what Warburg said. Like there was never any disagreement. Like he was just the guy who would give out orders in the name of Warburg, because he was more polite, obviously. So this Warburg guy is a very important, probably one of the most influential people during the Cold War. We don't know a lot about what he was doing in World War II, but he was still traveling to Germany long after the war had started, despite being a so-called Jewish banker.
Wow. Is this him with a parrot? Anytime you see, I mean, that's such a pirate, move. That's terrifying. Why would he do that? I don't know.
So there is a lot of parents and grandparents in the Bilderberg participants. But what is also interesting is that we have a lot of people with the same name, and this is something that led me to a new project, which is continuation of my research. Right now, I am looking into the possibility that there exists a group of families which together try to rule the world. One sociological concept is the concept of the ruling class, which has been criticized a lot because, like, ruling is the political system, but class is economic. So how can you combine both? And I agree to a certain degree. I prefer to use the term power elite. I think this describes better, merci baby. I think this describes better who these people are. But I was meditating on this, and I think another name which I created this morning is ruling clans. Which leads us to the concept of dynasties.
Pretty sure ruling clans is a Scottish Rite idea, but I like that you said it,
Dynasties, bloodlines, right? So this is what I'm researching right now, and I'm very excited about this because no matter where I look, I'm finding empirical evidence that my hypothesis might be correct. last 2 weeks ago, I was looking at World Bank annual meeting, and I was looking at people with similar names. How to do this? Can I send you guys a file and you would sure, okay.
You could probably screen share too if you want. I think you can.
Yeah, but I'm a bit
yeah, no worries.
Handicapped.
We'll manage. So I'd just like to say briefly in terms of control structures, it's pretty clear that, I'd rather control a few families than having to deal with a new prime minister every 4 years. I mean, how inefficient would that be? And then I just asked, maybe we'll manage to get him on the show, Dr. Marcel Polte, who's done research into, unfortunately, what is called satanic ritual abuse, and that there's even been surveys and studies only in Germany, I think even only in a particular county or some limited survey, and they had about 4,000 cases of verified satanic ritual abuse, which of course usually is something generational. And this doesn't mean that everyone needs to participate. But if you have that control factor in there as well, then you literally just inherit the power, It's of course easier to control than having to deal with the nuisance of democracy, and the engineering of consent, apparent consent, right?
Remix Phoenix, who I love, and sorry, I didn't mean any, when people blow up in cars, then I know I get kind of weird, but long suspected if Wallenberg is Warburg, or Wallenberg is Warburg, then the latter did found a community in Sweden. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I agree with you. And I think one of the things that I pull, and I just typed this in, I typed Rockefeller Orange, House of Orange, right? Because I was looking to prove this old story that the House of Orange bastards led to the Rockefeller and the Vanderburgs after the Jacobin. And there's a number of examples where these American self-made families are bastards from larger families, particularly the House of Orange. And the House of Orange is so important to Disney. Of course, Disney World is in Orange County. Disneyland is in Orange County, California, instead of Florida. The Orange counties and the Orange provinces from the Orange families, the noble families that were bringing oranges. And what do we remember about oranges in Arabia and Valencia, Spain? Do we remember that oranges are brought to Spain from the Cordoba Caliphate? Because it's a pretty important point to this, that clans are part of this. There's a reason why the House of Saud fits into this, right? Because it has to do with these royal House of Malta families connected. But yeah, so yeah, I 100% agree. And I think if you typed in almost any family, Vanderburg, Carnegie will come up in America as, they say, oh, Carnegie was an orphan, foundling, self-made man. Yeah, okay, sure. Where did the bloodline come from? And who's watching him? Who's watching his struggle and impressed with his struggle? What's that story? The Prince and the Pauper, I think, this is one of the most Masonic important. They tell every prince and every pauper this story. They're like, hey, there's a guy who looks just like you, and he's got a different social circumstance. And what happens if, there's a little bit of that Dan Aykroyd trading places, right?
Yeah, reminds me of the legend of Jacob Schiff, who came to. Rumors say he came to America in the mid-19th century with a few bucks in his pocket, and 30 years later he was running one of the biggest banks of the United States.
Dude, lead kids in here, Martin. Hey, Martin. I just want to say really quickly, I love you. I haven't seen you in a long time. I miss you. We should reach out. I would love to talk to you. I love seeing what you're up to. It's good you're here. Sorry, keep going, Alexander.
No worries. But Jacob Schiff grew up in the same house as the Rothschilds in Frankfurt, so it's very unlikely. Like the families were neighbors, so it is very unlikely he really came to New York with no money in his pocket. Even if he did, somebody shortly afterwards sent him a lot of money, I guess. Otherwise, you can't create cum laude, which was huge. Like,
and where do you stay when you get to New York?
One of the top 3 banks in New York. How can you create this if you're a poor guy, huh?
Right. Yeah, the whole thing. And look, Disney even did it. I mean, there's your sign right there.
Nice. Yeah, I will look into this. This looks very interesting. So we had this. I sent you my table, Rafael, Maybe if you can, because I would like people to see how I work, because it's a. Of course, there was Fritz Springmeier. Fritz Springmeier. Funny thing about Fritz Springmeier, he published a book called Bloodlines of the Illuminati. What I find ironic about this book is that you can download it from the CIA website.
Well,
so,
all right.
So somebody who likes to know secrets, like, found it worthy of their time. So it's, even if Fritz Springmeier has a bad reputation because he uses words like God and Satan, etc. So in our secular world, he's a very shady guy. How can you talk about Satanists and stuff like? We all know God doesn't exist, etc. So yeah, he doesn't have the best reputation.
He's from Oregon, you have to remember, like, on the West Coast, it's different. Like, we grew up in schools that have satanic beach cleanups and satanic daycare centers from Anton LaVey. So Satanism is a little bit more proximal here, I think, than it is elsewhere.
No. Look, I'm Catholic. I don't have trouble with the devil. But I'm just saying, people don't take him seriously because of his vocabulary.
Right. I just mean that there are atheists that believe, there are atheists who call themselves Satanists. In the United States, it's very common, if you become an atheist, to become a member of the Church of Satan, which technically is not supposed to believe in Satan. So they even do have atheist Satanists. Like, they have an entire army of them in their foot soldier ranks,
And I personally, I believe he got duped. Like, he received some information which is true, and he received some information which is not true, and wasn't able to discern one from the other, which is why his book is a bit sketchy. But I'm pretty sure that the idea that there exist families which cooperate and try to make the system work for them, I think he definitely was onto something. And for example, there are some families that I would have never noticed their importance. For example, the Todd, TODD. This I found first in Springmeier, and then I noticed, there is somebody in Bilderberg who is called Christine Todd Whitman, governor of New Jersey in the 1990s, and later administrator on Environmental Protection Agency. And
I remember this lady.
Since you remember, good, yeah. See, and now she's co-chair of the Forward Party. Wow, she's still active, huh?
Yeah.
I need to update my database. Very interesting. Yeah. What a coincidence, huh? What a coincidence. 6 weeks ago, she started a new party
with Andrew Yang. Do you know who Andrew Yang is? Andrew Yang is an American Taiwanese politician, Taiwanese American, I think that goes. But he's all about technology as the solution. He's saying, hey, look, we can just make Facebook pay with their data informatics instead of taxing you. We could give the corporations to the states, in a sense, so that they can make enough money. You don't need to be taxed anymore. We'll just, make enough money. We'll do geoengineering to fix the weather. He's very forward.
Transhumanism, yes. Very Bilderberg. I wasn't aware of this guy, but I find it very interesting. Like I said, you
got to watch his debates on geoengineering. It's great.
Yes, I will. I just wanted to provide one example of a dynasty that Springmeier mentioned, that
the Todd dynasty.
The Todd dynasty, that I wasn't aware something that they were relevant. And and it's very interesting that she's now in this party. I will have a closer look at this. So
wow, Todd, this is interesting. Looking to Scott, Reverend James Todd. I'm assuming here we're dealing with Scottish Rite style Presbyterians in New York at that time. Likely that they're members of the Scottish Rite. That's very interesting.
Yes. So that was just one example, and
so Xirtus, I sent it to your email.
I have my database. I have my database ordered alphabetically. Christine Todd Whitman shares the same name with Marina von Neumann Whitman.
Really?
Who is the daughter of a Martian? The Martian's Daughter, her memoirs are called, published in 2012. Because apparently, like officially, because people used to call the von Neumann and his friends the Martians because they were speaking English with a very strong Hungarian accent. That's the official explanation. Anyway, Marina von Neumann Whitman. John von Neumann is needs an introduction or doesn't need an introduction, guys? You know who this was?
Yeah, geophysical year. We could talk a bit about physics and science. Do you want to bring him up? Go ahead.
NASA and NASA and stuff like that.
Right. Yesterday we did. It was yesterday, the day before. We did a video where Neumann was very important. NASA Neumann. I suck at spelling it. And Neumann
here.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Von Neumann. Go back, Wiki. Basically, his connections to NASA, and then we found the ACNA, NACA, which was the original group that was started, and their connection to the geophysical year, which connects to the geopolar year, and the polar year groups are a secret society that have connected science for centuries. Actually, you might be interested in this. International Geophysical Year, you should look into this group of people and these specific scientists that were connected to the International Polar Year because they have an International Royal Science Foundation that goes back centuries. And so during times when the Soviet Union and the United States were supposed to be working against each other, all the information, what they were planning on, whether or not they were going to do Sputnik or if America was going to build, I forget what our satellite was, but it all came down to the fact that we were going to do a launch instead of using a rocket system, because they had the Stoyanov 7 rocket, right? But this was all decided at the geophysical year. And so there's a bunch of these little science academies, the Royal Astronomy Society, Astronomy Society. This group here, all these royals in Britain and their families that go back. And then there's the Royal Magician Society, International Magician Society. And this group is even weirder, right? Because these are guys who are British and they're involved in anthropology, archaeology, history, adventure club, explorers club, going to Antarctica, etc. But they're also into like making watches disappear, the IMS. You know what I mean? Very interesting little group.
Very interesting. I will look into this. Yeah, thanks, Andreas.
But sorry, so we were looking at Neumann.
yeah. Newman, Whitman. She said she. It's two families, Newman and Whitman. Whitman is the same as Christine Todd Whitman and Bilderberg 98. And then we have Marina von Neumann Whitman, Bilderberg 78. And founding member, Trilateral Commission. Director, Council on Foreign Relations. Member group of 40. Trustee, Institute for Advanced Study. Director, Institute of International Economics, executive positions at General Motors, member,
a huge list, by the way,
advisory committee on trade policy and negotiations, etc., etc. The Van Ryden, one of the best researchers in this field, Joel Van Ryden, he calls them people with the endless biographies, right? They have they have so many positions, you can it's hard to keep up. And I started doing this. I start to look for how different names are, if you can zoom in a bit, like on the like different names are connected with each other in the meaning or spelling. I'm looking at similarities in meaning or spelling.
Yeah. All the Nicks right there.
Different family names, like the Nicole, Nicolin, Nicholson, etc.
It's like Jon Snow all over again, no?
Sorry,
Wow.
Like Jon Snow, and I'm just saying, even in Game of Thrones, they show this to you, how they deal with their bastard families and all of this, and how it's all intertwined.
Yeah.
And it's the same story here.
This is an important one because the Jon Snow, this is the all-American belief, and I think Europeans have downloaded this ideology that the bastard is the most important character. It's again, he's a prince, a royal, right? He's got all the right blood, but he hasn't been tainted by nepotism. See, he's been raised as a normal foundling, as a bastard, so that he has to earn the right to his name. And this is the meritocracy that the Freemasons have introduced, saying, hey, it's not enough to be genetically of perfect blood. No, you need to be nurtured into this starve-crazed dragon, right? I don't know if that's the right metaphor because they're not house dragons. But...
It's a pretty good one, I think.
Prince Bernhard, Princess Beatrix, Prince Klaus, the Netherlands. So a lot of royals did get to go. It's not just... but the royals that seem to go are these Northern European, like the Dutch, right? What's up with the Dutch and the Spain and the sub Saxon Coburg von Goth families, like the House of Wilhelm, you know, like Sweden, Spain, Prince Charles or Prince Juan, Julian, Eric, Olaf, you know, from Sweden. Why are these particular families still allowed to be royal? Why are these other families American? I was also looking at this earlier, the Canadian royal families, right? Because there's so people don't think about the rich royal families in Canada that have, you know, they have huge pieces of property. They have cush jobs. I mean, you know, what's up with the royals that are in this versus the ones that are fake royals?
It's interesting that in Bilderberg, most princes, there are more princes than kings or queens that participate, and mostly they belong to this category of one-time participants, with the exception of the Dutch royal house, which has been part of Bilderberg since the beginning and still is, and the other exception was the Queen of Spain, the wife of Juan Carlos, who has in the meantime disappeared somewhere in one of the Arab countries, as far as I know. I think he's afraid for his life, as far as I can tell. I think he did some nasty things in the last 20 years.
Right.
And somebody found out. Not Juan Carlos, but his wife, Sofia, I believe is her name. She participated in, I think, basically every Bilderberg conference between 1989 and I think 2014. Yeah, I have, yes. Not every 16 times between 1989 and 2014.
Man, you said the average is one? One
yes.
time?
No,
Okay.
The average is not one. Let's say the average is two.
Okay.
The majority participates one time. The average would be maybe around two. So she participated in 16. And what is interesting, she starts participating. The first Bilderberg conference in Spain takes place in 1989, right when the Cold War ends. The Cold War ends and Spain begins participating in the Bilderberg conferences. 2014 is the last time the Queen of Spain participates in a Bilderberg conference so far, and the new Cold War begins.
Right. The economic crisis that happened in
coincidence, call it synchronicity. I don't believe in coincidence
No, there's no. It's definitely it's causality, it's consequence. So they bring him in, and then Spain also starts to have all this infrastructure changes. But it's not because of being after war. It's because they're bringing in new football World Cups, right? And so they have to have new trains and infrastructure for the soccer games. And this begins the post Cold War infrastructure rebuild is through football in Spain.
Interesting, yeah. We could. But that would be a discussion for another.
Indeed.
Are you aware that the new FIFA boss is from the same village as the old FIFA boss?
Really?
Yeah, the Infantino guy, Infantino, and Sepp Blatter. Sepp Blatter got a bit gaga, so they had to remove him. And Infantino, he's from either from the same village or from the same valley. I don't want to spread rumors, but
right.
from the whole world, the successor is basically from the same place as his predecessor. So there is no, like, as if there were no other possible candidates for this position.
Right. Yeah, what's the Illuminati card for that? Professional sports. Gives +4 to any attempt to control any straight group. Link this card to any one personality you control to give them +3 power as a worldwide sports commentator. Yeah.
Yeah. So these two, the Dutch and the Spanish, but the Spanish only for 25 years, the Dutch all the time.
Right. The Dutch first.
And then we had like one conference which I consider particularly influential was the Bilderberg Conference 1995 in Switzerland. That's when the King of Sweden participated in person. Usually it's just some ministers and the Wallenberg people. But in 1995 in Switzerland, there was also the King of Sweden. Speaking of the royals, Prince Charles participated shortly before the so-called Big Bang. This is more interesting for the British people than the Americans. But there was the deregulation of the financial market in the United Kingdom called the Big Bang. And shortly before this happened, Prince Charles was invited to a Bilderberg conference. And shortly after he got invited, he wrote in a letter complaining about the undue influence of the Jewish bankers. And this is, you can find this online. It was a small scandal when somebody found this letter.
Interesting.
I find it interesting that he goes to Bilderberg. They basically tell him, look, we're gonna fuck your people and you can't do anything about it. And he was like, what the fuck are they doing, like, these motherfuckers? And they did it anyway. There was not much the British royal house could do about it.
Right. Interesting.
And
Carl Phillip. Yeah, I mean,
so
you will own nothing and be happy.
Like, this brings me to the question, who are these people, right? Because we haven't touched upon this topic yet. And from as far as I can tell, the people who are influential in Bilderberg are international bankers who own sovereign debt. That's my main hypothesis for my PhD thesis. The Bilderberg is about sovereign debt, because somewhere you have to discuss things between the bankers and the governments, right?
Would make sense, and even just considering how important even just interest rates are, and just like you said, there's special groups only for central bankers. Just as someone in chat is asking about it, and I know that you know quite a lot about this as well, is there something you could say about the Habsburg family maybe in relation to this?
Sure. The Habsburgs were not welcome at Bilderberg in the 50s. There is a letter from we haven't mentioned this guy yet, so I'll write the name in the chat just very quickly. Joseph Ratzinger. Much more interesting, at least for me, much more interesting figure than Prince Bernhard. Joseph Ratzinger, he was in touch with, he knew a lot of people. He was meeting, I think it was the brother of Otto von Habsburg. I can check, but pretty sure it was the brother or the cousin of Otto von Habsburg. And they were meeting each other, and there was the Ratzinger wrote to Prince Bernhard, of course, like, we would never invite these people to our conference because they have a different worldview than we do. But I don't know what he was telling Habsburg when they were talking, but he was trying to find out. He was asking Habsburg for names of Austrian people and some of them got invited. Some of them got invited to Bilderberg later on. This guy, for example, Georg Zimmer-Lehmann. There is in the archives, I found some documents which are the most interesting period from what I studied so far is the second half of the 1970s, shortly after the Lockheed scandal, and Prince Bernhard had to retire. He was forced to retire. It was not his decision. If it was up to him, it was but what's the problem? And But they basically told him, look, you're out. Like I suspect, yes, Lockheed bribery scandals. I suspect that Prince Bernhard was not the most secretive person. I suspect he was talking a lot, especially when he was drunk. He would brag about, yeah, I remember how we killed Kennedy, stuff like that. I don't think these people appreciated this. And at some point he got removed. He was obviously not very happy with this decision, but it was not his decision to make. And there was the question, there was Bilderberg 1976 was the only year before the pandemic when there was no conference. And then in 1977 they met in England, and basically the main question of the conference was, do we continue? How do we continue? And they discussed this in the next three conferences, 77, 78, 79. Yes.
Interesting that there'd be 76, not a meeting.
There are some people, there is, for example, a Rothschild secretary, Pitti Ferrandi is his name, from an Italian aristocrat family, Pitti Ferrandi. There you go, Pitti Ferrandi. He only participated in these conferences. He was never invited before. He was never invited after. Obviously, he was there to represent the interests of the French Rothschilds.
Dude, look at him smelling that wine cork. What a baller.
And this is where the Habsburgs come into the picture.
Interesting.
In 1979, there was a steering committee meeting in Palais Schwarzenberg in Wien. Karel Schwarzenberg, such a handsome guy. Maybe you can show him. Karel Schwarzenberg, former foreign minister of the Czech Republic.
He looks like such a comic character.
He looks like he eats children for breakfast.
I don't mean to laugh. I just mean I can see it. That mustache is a little off. You know what I mean?
One of the most powerful people in the world.
Bow tie.
So this is the Habsburgs, and he was supposed to become member of the steering committee, but something didn't work out. Anyway, there is Bilderberg 1. This is from the official documents. Bilderberg
Schwarzenberg 1 is like a blackened mountain. It does sound like a volcano.
Yes, Black Mountain, yeah. Like a black mountain, which reminds me of Blackstone, and of course,
Black Rock.
Black Rock.
And I have to bring this up because even last show with Stefan Hafiz, he mentioned the Order of the Black Stone. You know, this knightly order, whatever esoteric stuff. So the Black Stone or Black Rock is certainly a recurring theme,
right?
Whatever it means exactly.
I think it's a touchstone. It's the alchemist stone, maybe like a special magical stone created by alchemy through a volcano.
Yeah.
So Bilderberg 1, 1954 to 1975, and in 1980 begins Bilderberg 2. And the difference between Bilderberg 1 and Bilderberg 2 is that in Bilderberg 1, there was a certain consensus among the steering committee members. They were all on the same page regarding certain issues. And from 1980 on, they were forced to invite people which were not part of their club, and the consensus could not be assumed anymore. They would have to generate this consensus in the meetings. And I'm pretty sure that the deliberations at the Bilderberg conferences in the 1980s led to the creation of the European single market, the European currency, and the end of the Cold War. And the Karel Schwarzenberg participated as observer in 1979, and then in 1980 and 1981, and then in 2008. But he was a regular participant in the Munich security conferences. And there, I think, there you will find like people who are interested in what the Habsburgs are doing today. One place where you can look is the Munich Security Conference, where there are also other interesting families from these circles, like the Fuggers. The Fuggers still exist. There is this myth of the Fuggers being very rich like 500 years ago, and they are not. They are still very rich and influential.
Those Fuggers.
And I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Dutch royal family, they are directly descendant from the Medici from Florence, which are also rumored to have become extinct at some point, but it's not true. They just intermarried with a lot of royal houses, and their descendants still are in positions of power today, same as the Visconti family and many other northern Italian families from a few hundred years ago. That if you have only a superficial look on the internet, you have the impressions, they were rich at some point but are not anymore, which is not true. They just changed their names. The Fuggers didn't change their name. Fugger von Babenhausen is the current branch. There are also the Princess of Bayern, etc. There are a lot of these people in the Munich Security Conference, so it's very unlikely that all the prime ministers and presidents meet with these people just to drink tea.
Look at this soft guy.
Yeah.
Brutal. And so this is their Deutsch wiki, because you can't get their American wiki, or rather, it's not there. But last remaining male branch of the Fugger von der Lilly, with the Lilly coat of arms, a line of the Fugger family from Augsburg that became known for its business success in the early modern period. An interesting thing about the von der Lilly, this lily flower thing, is that the it's a fleur de lis, right? Fleur de lis. I can't get it spell. B. Let me try that. The fleur de lis is actually a bumblebee, and it's related to the idea of the B star versus the Sirius star. You can see it over time as the shape changed into the flower, the birds and the bees and the flower, right? There's like a hidden inner pattern there. So they're connected to the idea of the beehive, which is a whole other
hive mind, huh?
Right? Yeah. And the queen, right? A queen bee, and everyone has a job, and they're all making honey. Yeah.
So maybe I if you guys like what I'm talking about, I would like to, when I finish this, now we talked a lot about Bilderberg and everything related to Bilderberg. I would love at some point to come back when I have more information about these ruling clans.
Yeah.
Because I think you can really show how certain corporations, certain central banks, certain governments, like they replace people, and the name changes, but often it's from the same group of families. I think this could be interesting.
And maybe just to reinforce this academically, from the little that I know, I believe there's been a study even by Albert Laszlo Bornabashi, but also there is this famous ETH Zurich study, which I'm sure you know, Milosz, which is about 200 international corporations basically control the fulcrum of the entire world economic system. And then, just thinking about it from a game theory point of view, a system theory point of view, how many choke points do you really need to control? We saw the example with the steering committee, and you just keep funneling that down, have, circles within circles. And then, yeah.
Have you ever seen Rollerball?
Nope.
Okay, so a little bit of homework. I know you're busy doing real research and all that, but check this out. I'm serious. There's this American movie from 1975 called Rollerball. And when you make an American movie, it's got to be kind of dumb on purpose. But then there's a lot of deep stuff by accident sometimes, or maybe they make the whole movie seem dumb, but it's really a deep dystopic look at the future. This movie shot in Munich in 1974-75, and they invented this future dystopia where there's no, like, all the states have exhausted their loan, or like every city is owned at this point through a 1,000-year lease by a corporation. And there's down to about 7 corporations left, and all the states are bankrupted. So only states run the world, and wives are leased. You can't buy your own wife anymore. You have to lease her. And the whole society, there's no war anymore because there's Rollerball. And they have this Tavistock-like performance where they show you that life is, like the team matters, but the character doesn't, because each sports star could die, and usually does. So it's all about trying to have your energy team in Houston win against the agriculture team in Tokyo, or the iron team in New York, or whatever. Like they're all the cities in different places are all owned by these different corporations. And we're getting really close to this. The main difference, obviously, is we've emasculated society so much that we don't need gladiator rings anymore, per se. But I think that's coming back with transhumanism. And yeah, I feel like this movie was the ultimate metaphor for what they were trying to do with Bilderberg. That's all I got.
Thanks. Yeah, I will check it out. Haven't heard about
I swear it's weird looking, but it's really deep. It's totally all about this stuff. They can't put that kind of thing in front of people's faces. It has to be hidden, you know?
Sure.
But dude, thank you, Alexander. This is amazing. I mean, this is a great amount of data. I love that you put this all together. I can't wait to, I didn't look through your Excel sheet, so I'm going to go through that again. And then, yeah, like I can't wait in a couple months or whenever you're done with what you're doing, let me know. Come back whenever you feel like it. It's a wonderful.
Thank you so
wonderful
much.
time.
Thank you for the opportunity to share what I know and to expand my audience. And I really enjoyed being here. And hopefully this wasn't the last time.
Oh, absolutely not. I also wanted to say your links are already in the description for the YouTube video at the top, but do you want to, I'm going to open them up and show people, and do you want to just walk us through where they can find more data from you?
Mm-hmm. I'm whenever I have something that I consider worth publishing, I put it on my academia.edu website. And I'm also on ResearchGate. It's funny, like how the database is people access the database through academia, and one paper I have, which is an introduction into the network, they access through ResearchGate. I don't know how this works, but I have here. I have 7,000 reads, so that's not nothing for
academics. Yeah, I mean, there's only about 7,000 people anymore who know how to read. So I mean, you know, you basically hit the whole audience.
No, but I'm happy. I'm happy with the I'm happy with the interest in my research, and I hope I will continue for a long time. Yeah.
Guys, they're going to try to lock you out of this. Make sure you click on join for free, and then tell them that when you get to the point where they ask you, what are you about? Just say retiree, non-academic, or undergrad student, or, you know, whatever you want, basically. Because they want to know why you want to know stuff these days. But the links are there, guys. I hope you go and click on them. I'm going to go read through all of these. And yeah, Alexander, thank you so much for being here. And Raf, thank you for finding Alexander.
Thanks, guys.
Have like a nice vibration evening. To like vibration. Thanks y'all very much.
Oh, this is something I almost forgot to do. Is Keenan still here? Keenan and Richard. So Richard sent me some cards in the mail. So Richard, thank you again for your postcards. And then I just wanted to open this on camera because I didn't do this yet. I'm gonna do it really quickly. Keenan sent me all this interesting postcard stuff from the 1950s or 60s. And they have like break off pictures of, you know, the capitals and everything back in America in the old days. So I just want to say thank you for sending this. It's still super cool.
Your hands to make an unsanitary mouthwash cup. Getting
that was not an ad for me. But yeah, okay, guys, love you. See you next time. Take care. Peace out.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.